Welcome back to Doing Things Differently, a podcast where we're looking at things people do that are outside the normal course or normal way of doing business. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Phil. Honored to be here.
Yes, it's fascinating. I worked with James's father many years ago and found it fascinating. I kind of peripherally heard my son's doing this, my son's doing this, just in the course of normal business. But then he reached out and suggested I talk to you. And I said, wow, that's fascinating. It's always great to put a face to the stories that you hear a father tell about their son, as the course of their growing up. So it's good to talk to you in person and put a face to the stories I've heard.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating story just having been around, been around the engineering world, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but just growing up in a family of engineers and realizing like, hey, I was not cut out to do that. But we'll get into that. So it's kind of funny how we went from essentially engineering, 3.5 years of school in engineering, working my way through school, and then really just finding interpersonal connectedness and gratitude, but starting a company that's based on client retention through that experience. So we'll get into it, but it's kind of fun to connect the dots of how we're here today.
So James, what I found fascinating is you started in a very difficult, challenging line of business, and you really fundamentally a lot of people do what you've done, but then they do it, and then maybe you start doing something else, but they don't really think about the fundamentals of that business and really what it takes to be successful. So first, I'd like to kind of give us an overview of kind of your career and how things have your company right now, and then kind of how you got to the point today.
Yeah. So Phil, just to kind of start, I always love to study what people believe and like kind of how they got there. And so I'm going to kind of weave some of that in there. But along the lines of weaving the whole story together, really, I found that gratitude is the key to it all. And it's, for me at least, so that gratitude is grounded in a core belief in human connectedness. And what I've learned, so I worked my way through school with Cutco, selling the kitchen knives, which, you mentioned was kind of challenging.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is like, if I appreciated my clients, my referral partners, people like that, they stay longer, they sent me more referrals, they purchase stuff again. And I really realized I was like, I fully believe that I don't have to be grounded in chasing new business all the time. So, now it's easy to look back and have those beliefs, but, kind of like you had asked, let's take a journey down how we got there. So my senior year of high school, I actually got referred to Cutco and started selling kitchen knives through my high school football parents' friends, things like that. And I wound up playing college football at the Air Force Academy. So I did Cutco college football. And then there was a medical injury where I actually came back to Houston and wound up selling Cutco again. And looking back over the years, there were about 1,200 clients. So I wrapped that story in because I sat at 1,200 different kitchen tables, learned the art of connection, really learned what made people tick, their goals, their dreams, their fears, their deepest desires. And it really positioned me in a unique way to actually take that as a core concept. And then Cutco, we started doing business gifts. And so we went from human connection to corporate gifting. And I was like, why don't we just connect the two? And here we are as the founder of the Retention Experts now. So kind of combine the two, and we have a consulting side and a gifting concierge now. So all wrapped under one brand.
So what is it you do in terms of, gifting and retention? How does that fit together?
It's kind of funny, Phil, because what happened was we started with corporate gifting, and there's a funny story that I think you and I will probably get into about flexibility and just like looking at things differently here in a few minutes. But essentially what happened was we started with gifting, and everybody said, we need to do Christmas gifts, right? It's like everybody kind of checking that obligatory box, putting their logo on everything. And I have a core belief, honestly, Phil, that like logo gift giving is dead. Christmas gift giving is dead. And I could honestly argue that it never even worked. And so it's a little contrarian there. But what happened was we were doing this gifting, and people start, well, who do I need to gift? Who are the people that really run my business? Is Christmas the best time? Should I be putting my logo? Should I be making it about them? And that's all we were doing was just the gifts. I'm like giving them advice. I'm starting tearing through their database with them, helping them set up reports. And I was like, these are common problems that everybody's business has. Who runs my business relationships? Where can I make my money outside of clients? How do I actually tie the gift to them remembering me and thinking about me, other than that one time at Christmas when their conference room, I like to joke, I'm like, you look at a conference room at work during the holidays, and you're either going to get diabetes or alcoholism.
Have start AA, yeah, have to,
exactly.
Right. Food and alcohol.
And, so we just start looking at food and alcohol at Christmas, and it's like, why are we all doing the same thing at the same time? It's like, because nobody taught you how to do it differently, right? And so we really just started looking at how to manage relationships, how to build trust, honestly, like how to create connection at scale as your business scales, and how to put the person, the human needs, back into scaling your processes. And we started realizing that these businesses had common problems around that. And so that's how we kind of blended the gifting with the appreciation side strategy, right? I like to joke sometimes, it's got to make sense if it's going to make dollars, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. In terms of gift giving and strategy, how did going door to door and talking to how many people did you talk to? You said 1,200 people. How did that? What was the moment where you said, "Look, this is doing it. We have to do it differently." And then how did that translate into corporate? Because in Cutco, you're doing door to door, individual, people. How did that translate into business? Because a business audience, and how did you break into that market? Because a business audience is much different, or is it, than selling to an individual?
It is and it isn't, right? Because at the end of the day, the B2B is different, but at the end of the day, Phil, we're all human. And so really being able to pull at a person's heartstrings is the same, but then how you navigate the top-down process from a C-suite down to an implementer, decision maker implementer, is very different than sitting with a housewife or a mother or a married couple together. But to answer that, I met enough people in Cutco to have seen all walks of life, all kinds of job scopes. And I just realized a lot of my Cutco clients were private wealth managers. They owned accounting firms. They were decision makers within larger corporations. Some of them were head of HR. And I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm going, if I graduate college and want to continue to sell Cutco, I need to sell more and I need to sell bigger orders, And I was like, how do I do that? And the answer was,
yeah, there's only one of you, and there you can only hit so many doors a day, and find people there. So it's basically about scaling your business was what said.
Scaling my business, but it was also impact. I've had a lot of people tell me how their entertaining and their community around their kitchen table is different because they have great knives and they enjoy it more. But it kind of comes to a point where I've done this, 6-7 years, and it's like, what do I really make a difference? It's the core question of all of us deep down. I firmly believe, Phil, or do I matter? Do I make a difference? And if I don't, am I really loved? It's a really core human philosophy. And I think at 25, 26, I really just started asking, like, what's the impact I'm making in the world? And now instead of one James, one decision maker, it's, now we impact hundreds of people at a time with one order. So I just started calling all my old Cutco clients back and saying, hey, it's been a while. I started laughing. I was like, do you still have all your fingers, right?
Come up with a bit to hook them, get them laughing.
Exactly. And then I said, well, I'm not obviously doing what I was doing in college anymore, and would talk about some of the common problems. So if anybody listening to this says, my marketing department gets me a new client, but nobody helps me retain or grow them, or I know my referral partners are doing more business, but they're not sending me all of the referrals, or I'm so busy in my day-to-day operations, but I want my people to know how much I actually appreciate them. Kind of just started saying that to Cutco clients that owned a business. And they were like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's have a meeting. And kind of a funny story. I didn't graduate college and go, oh man, I'm just going to start my own business, right? Like, it's funny. I had a Central Houston client who had an endowed scholarship at A&M. And she said, your Cutco knives would be a really great donor appreciation. We could custom engrave the names. We'd love our Cutco and stuff like that. But the problem, Phil, is they were supposed to be football suite gifts. And, when you're with a large endowed university, some pretty high profile people, and the VP of development goes, well, James, I love Cutco too, but the problem is I can't give knives as a weapon within a football stadium.
And, knives, alcohol, losing. It just seems like it could be a very, very bad ending.
Liability at best. A lot of other things at worst. And so what happened, I was just a college student. I was a senior on campus at A&M. I didn't have a business. I had a 1099 contract with Cutco. And she goes, James, I like you and I want to do business with you, but like, what other options do you have? And it's a funny story because, the connection between you and my father, I basically took the old marketing material from the company that he had and overlaid. I didn't have a logo. I didn't have a name. I was a sole proprietor under my social security number and slapped J. Rushing & Co. Strategic Gifting at the time in Microsoft font in PowerPoint and made a PowerPoint and walked into the president of the 8th largest endowed university and said, here's our other ideas. And long story short, A&M's president's office actually became the first client of the company that's now the retention experts. And we won that deal 2 years in a row. So I know I did a lot of things wrong, but I had to have done something right there.
For sure. So being, having an idea and then looking and saying, hey, I can't do knives. I like you. I like doing business with me. You've proven yourself, but you got to find something else. And so basically that scrappy entrepreneur mindset, what do I have around? And I got a bunch of old swag from Ellipsis days. Let's see what we can do with that.
And I took some of the sales framework from Ellipsis. I called a Cutco mentor of mine and I said, who else do you use? And he was like, oh, we really love these things. I gave that vendor a call. And what's crazy, Phil, is that first call was actually the vendor they picked. And we had some samples made up. The president was building a new house and we put, something that we teach a lot of people on a side note is don't put your logo on something. Like, that's fine, but that's marketing. That's not true appreciation and gifting. So I think the thing we really did that won us the deal was we put on the samples made especially for Michael and Marty and gave them as samples, but gave them as gifts for their new house. which was really cool because it resulted in a handwritten note back from the president of my university that I graduated from, which I'll forever cherish. But I think that's the thing that actually won us the deal, was the thoughtfulness that when it's not the thought that counts, it's the thoughtful thought that counts. And I think with appreciation, a lot of times people are just following the same playbook. And I think it actually backfires sometimes. What I mean by this, you ever gotten a gift that you either re-gifted or you thought, man, they really would have been better off having not, in a business setting, having not even sent that gift. So that's why I think the thoughtful thought that counts, you know. So
well, I like the way you thought about, like I say, not just the gift, but that personalization, people seeing their name, knowing, I mean, that their name is a reminder, trigger in their head that this person not only picked out this item, but this person sent it directly to me. You know, that to me part really gets that human aspect that you're talking about.
You know, it's funny though, when people donate a lot of money, right? The most significant people in society, right? What do they normally do after they donate a bunch of money? Let's talk about a school campus or a hospital campus, right? What happens after they donate money?
I have no idea. I know we have a big ceremony where they get to cut a ribbon, or, you know, and wonderful things are said, you know, and, you know, about their legacy, their care for others. But honestly, I don't know what happens after that. Does something happen?
What goes on the building? Their name.
Oh yeah.
It's either their name or they get to honor somebody's legacy by putting somebody else's name on there.
Okay, naming rights.
Yeah, naming rights, right? And it's one of the most important things to people is their name. And so that's where a lot of the strategy comes in, right? And we can get into it if you want, but essentially, I think it comes down to the importance of understanding human needs. You know, there's significance, there's contribution, there's community. And I think, you know, really, truly appreciating, truly retaining somebody comes down to engagement. And engaging them comes down to what matters to them. And when it comes into how to gift, how to appreciate, it's important that you put somebody's, at least what's important to them, right? And one of the things we love to do is on our gifts, typically people think like, how do I scale this? How do I use technology? How do I make it more efficient? And you don't want, I actually don't suggest our clients go find the perfect gift for everybody. I think that's a waste of time and not necessary. But you pick a good, reasonable gift that gets used, that's going to be in a referral setting, involves either their spouse, significant other, or in a business setting. People overlook their executive assistants or their receptionists. And so you actually include those people in the gifting. And what we do is we actually put, you know, we'd either put like black on a gift for you. So like if you were to ever gift it in a legacy setting or anybody else is involved, it's not just a gift to fill. And so it's a very small, minute detail, but pick a gift that everybody uses. And then you have to pull the spreadsheet of how many gifts to order for who anyway. So they just actually send us the spreadsheet and we custom engrave everything. Makes our client look like the hero because they are the hero. We're just kind of the guide, right? And it's a huge impact that touches on a human need versus plastering somebody's logo all over something. And there is a time, I'm not saying don't do that. There's a time and place for both, but just understand when it calls for a marketing touch versus an actual genuine appreciation piece. But all that to wrap up, you know, we all have similar core needs, and you can touch on significance and community and connection with their name. So it's an art and a science.
Yeah, I think I like your concept too of not just sending to the important person, but including something for the assistant, because those people aren't thanked enough. And they're essentially the gatekeeper to the person you're trying to get. So it doesn't really cost you anything extra because you're sending the package anyway. So putting something that they remember you by, I suspect probably get you in the door faster, or in some aspects in the future, just
Yeah.
because they're like, oh yeah, James, I remember him. Yeah, he sent me something, I don't know what it would be, but something, not even they don't consciously remember it, but just there's a trigger in their mind of a pleasant feeling when they opened it up, because they get thousands of things a year, and everything's for the person in the big office, and someone took the time to think about more than just the one person. They thought more holistically than that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's really, at the core, right? That's why it's controversial. But I'm like, that's why logo gift giving at Christmas is just dead, or never worked. Because what happens, and I mean, I'm sure you know this, like the things you remember about people are how you felt when you were with them or when you think about them. Not what they say or what they really did. It's how do you feel? And so what happens, you do these thoughtful things, or you outsource somebody like the retention experts to do that. Nobody ever sees the retention experts. Phil looks like the genius, right?
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. And essentially what happens is you give a really thoughtful gift, but they remember how they feel. So every time they use that useful gift, it triggers an emotion of you. And you kind of get a little billboard for yourself, right? And it feels good too. It feels great to take care of your most important people. But that little gift becomes an artifact, a tangible piece of the relationship that every time they use that, it activates something called the law of reciprocity. And it helps them feel connected to whoever gave it to them.
Okay, so triggering a memory. Are there other things you do in addition to the name? Are there other ways you've personalized things that maybe you don't necessarily know who it's going to be? The company you're working with, they may need some extras, just in case, to give out, the people who come by that they want to give something to remember them by. Do you have ways of doing that, or is in that scenario it's more of just a logo is sufficient?
In that situation, right, because it is kind of just the people that pop by. But one of the things we've done too, though, is maybe less than a logo. It's a thematic, right? So we help a real estate broker, and she's really big on honor. We're honored to serve you. So instead of plastering the Golden Group on it, Denise actually literally engraves hers with "We're honored to serve you."
Oh, okay. So a different message, but one that respects and shows the direct appreciation, instead of just touting how good we are. Look at our logo. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, but here's our logo, but then a special message that communicates the importance they are in a general sense.
And it's also, I mean, honestly, Phil, that's her tagline for her business. So she puts her logo, and then it's "We're honored to serve you." And it's true, though, but she's done a great job of branding where she has a tagline that is also about them. So there we are, back to the same common theme of make it about your people, So
yeah. I'm curious. So, there's a lot of focus on scale. It's like, oh my goodness, we got to scale. We got to get big fast, the market effect, the flywheel, and those are all great things, but
scale with speed, right?
Yeah, faster, but how do we take some of these things and bring the human back into it? When is scaling when is technology a help, but how to effectively get the best of technology without losing the humanness, the connectivity you're talking about?
Well, I think tongue in cheek, slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
Little irony in that, but no, I mean, technology is a great thing. I think a couple of things outside of gifting. I was having a conversation this morning about sales prospecting and how do you connect with people. And I said, yo, quit sending an email that's just words, like record a pre-recorded video and then have that video sit in your mass emails. It's the same thing. You're going to template an email. You might as well template a video, but now you have voice, you have face, you have interaction. And so I think just looking at small little ways, like you said at the beginning, to put more personal touches into things that you can then scale at mass, right? So for example, somebody's name. So you're going to already have to pull the report out of your CRM for who your employees, your referral partners, or your clients are. Have a vendor that can put their name on it, right? That's a way to use technology to personalize something at scale that doesn't take a ton more time. I think another huge thing, people, when they build their internal processes for their companies, it's the most popular radio station ever, right? I always talk about FT, what's in it for them, but people always play the radio station, what's in it for me? And so when you look at corporations and how this actually plays out, people build their internal processes for their companies to fulfill what the company needs. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, in business, you have to take care of what you need. You can't fulfill it. You can't make your profit margins. You're not in business. You can't serve somebody. So what I always teach my clients, Phil, is take a journey. Go ahead and map your buyer's journey. Map your client's shoes. Walk in their shoes and understand what their needs are. What are they uncertain about? Where could they get buyer's remorse? What questions do they have that aren't necessarily answered? And then build your process second. So of course, your needs are still met, but design it with your client's needs first, and then design your process, and then use technology to scale that. But you have to put the human factor back into it, the human experience, before you just turn it over to technology and scale this, because you've taken the human out of it if you don't do that first. That makes sense?
Yeah, so design your processes effectively with the human in mind and with the human first. So it's about scaling to a certain point, but scaling within the confines of human nature. I mean, humans, we change slowly. We don't. I have my habit, I have my routine, and getting out of that routine can be very difficult. You can get big benefits, but I can't change everything at once. I can't say, well, maybe I'll do everything different today. I mean, just to the thought process, you got to have some things that are automated, a habit, that way you can think about the important things, and your body can just kind of go on memory for doing some things.
In my belief system, there's 6 core human needs, right? We talked about significance, we talked about connection and growth contribution. The other 2 of those are actually certainty and uncertainty. And so you need a healthy variety in your life, but you also can't stay completely stagnant in your routines. So when we talk about scaling processes, but putting human needs in there, humans have a high need for certainty. They need to know what's next. They need to know what we're actually doing, right? And then we need some variety and spice in life too. But I think that's kind of where that comes into conversation of build your processes before you scale them. Build them with knowing your client or your employee has a need for certainty. That's why we have onboarding processes, right?
Yeah. What can an employee expect kind of from the company, just in a big sense? No matter how big or small the company, no matter if it's formal or informal, you always have an orientation to kind of get you situated within the culture, within the way things run. That's a good point.
The way things work about that, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. And then I think another thing you'd ask just about some technology and how to use technology to scale with human factors. I was talking with a gal that's actually a shop manager for King Ranch 2 weeks ago. And what she shared was, and I pulled this quote, so I'm gonna read this real quick. Showing gratitude and gifting is a popular idea, but applying data to it to actually prove its worth is a really interesting concept. And I laugh. I'm like, things have to make sense logically to make dollars. And there's a double entendre in there, right? It's got to make sense before it makes dollars. But use your data, apply your analytics to actually figure out who your top clients are. Why do you get referrals? When do you get more referrals? How do you get more referrals? And then do more of what actually works. Pull the data of your deal sources to figure out where they come from. If you're running a referral-based business or you want to run a more referral-based business, pull your data to actually understand where your referrals come from so you can turn that person that sent you one referral, turn that one into two. But then also, it's important that next year, Phil, that person that sent you one this year, that they send you that same, not the same referral, but send you one or two again, or else your business is regressing. So there is, I like to joke, we have a really simple line. It's psychology plus client data plus unique gifting equals incremental revenue. And the data is an integral part of it, because I think what happens, how to apply the data to this in like a macro sense of what we're talking about. People, when it comes to appreciation or gifting, Phil, I find they often start with what makes a good gift. And it's totally backwards. Start with the data of who your relationships are. I call it the 3W. Start with who, when, and then what. But to know who and when, you have to actually go apply your data of who are all the people that help me run my business. You know, you can make money through a lot of ways other than just a past client investing more with you or staying longer, right? Referrals, you may have speaking opportunities, you may have association opportunities, you may have professional influencers, you may have referral partners. There's so much more than just a client or an employee, but people miss that if they start with what makes a good gift and who do I need to give it to? And they don't even look at when. It's just, yeah, of course it's Christmas. It's like, take your data and take your technology and apply it who, when, what. And we do all that for a client, right? We help guide them. But those are simple things people can implement on their own as well. So
what kinds of data are you talking about? I mean, you know, you may know that these are my top 5 customers, but what kind of data can tell you why they're your customers? I think that's what you're saying in terms of understand the why. What kind of data other than the revenue that you know they've given you over the year or whatever?
Yeah.
What kind of additional data can you look for, and what can be gleaned from that additional data?
So, I mean, data comes in all kinds of different ways, right? So, you know, if you're gleaning revenue information, we're having where does our revenue come from? Again, a little contrarian, but I would add that data might literally be when's their birthday, right? You know, what associations are they in? Like, where does your ideal prospect hang out? Where can you find more of them? We used to do a lot of speaking engagements, and I would know certain offices would be better to speak in than others. So I would top grade my data. I would spend less time over here, more time over here, more time over here asking that office manager who else they knew to go to an office like theirs, right? How do you use technology, right? One of my business coaches, he plays the totally random story, but he plays the saxophone. And so on my birthday, he recorded a video of him playing on his saxophone, happy birthday. If you don't have your data in place to know when the birthday is, and he sent it on a personal text, but one thing you could do is use technology to leverage that. And on your birthday, you could say, Phil, thinking about you, happy birthday, shot this to celebrate you. He could record that one time and send that to everybody in his database, but you'd feel like Daniel or James or Phil was the person that spent the most attention on me for my birthday.
Yeah. So if you know it and do it either on or a day or two before,
Yeah. But
right.
How does technology and data play into that? Well, you have to actually capture their birthday to then have your technology trigger it at scale, right?
Okay.
If not, you're like, I do this sometimes too. I'll scroll through Facebook and it'll give you the notifications of whose birthday it is. Well, then that's a manual process, which is fine. I love doing that. But for us, even as the retention experts, I want to get better at capturing people's birthdays. And then I'm going to give you and everybody else a little tip. Don't celebrate birthdays. You've got ABCs, anniversaries, birthdays, and Christmas. Again, this whole podcast is about doing things differently. Do their half birthday. You're the only one in the world that's ever gonna reach out.
6 months
and you're
from
like,
now.
yeah, it's like, hey, it's your half birthday. I just wanted to celebrate you at a time when no one else.
That's awesome.
How does technology play into that? You have a technology trigger that triggers 6 months after their birthday or before their birthday.
Yeah.
Shouldn't give too much of the secrets away or we won't look so special.
That's a good one. I like that. I like that different mentalities. Think about, and that's the value you bring, to your customers, is helping them through this process to think about how they can stand out from others, and that's how you retain that. You gotta be in people's minds, and you gotta pop up unexpectedly in a pleasurable sense. And then oh yeah, I need whatever that service is provided. So that
you don't want to knock on their door unannounced at their family barbecue.
Yeah, you don't want to show up in person on their birthday, but
that's unpleasant. But getting something, for example, we have something lined up in May, right? And it's he's sending barbecue tools, and it's like, hey, I want you to have these with your family throughout your summer barbecues this year. Well, here's the thing, Phil. That client's not actually showing up at the barbecue, but he is actually showing up at the barbecue in a really subtle, like custom engraved with all their names on it, their name, but they're going to be thinking about him. And so, like you said, right? Like, yeah, you have to stay top of mind in a very pleasant way. And, there's huge benefits to this, right? Like, somebody said one time, I forget exactly what they said, but win their hearts and minds and you'll win their business forever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a huge benefit to that, right? Like, people will go around talking about Phil, about how great Phil makes him feel. Are you ever going to stop doing business? It's not, yes, you have to have a great product or a great service. You have to fulfill it, right? I guess price within some reason has to be in their pricing tier, but you're never going to leave that relationship with somebody that knows you're cared about, knows your business matters, knows that as an employee, I matter. They're not going to leave. People think when they work with the retention experts, they're buying retention or referrals, and they are, but that's the end outcome. What they're really buying is the way that you can win somebody's heart or mind in a scaled way for increased connection. And of course, people stay longer, send you more referrals, things like that. But to kind of start landing the plane, there's a huge benefit to that in business, right? Like Bain Consulting literally did a study and a 5% increase in retention. 5, nothing big, leads to 25 to 95% more profit.
Wow.
It's a huge benefit. Like, it's expensive and difficult to go find a new client. It's nowhere near as difficult to actually grow that account, grow those referrals, and do a lot more business with your existing client. Like, you don't have to go chase new business all the time.
Yeah. You don't have to. If you do it right, you don't have to rely on cold calls or email blast to 10,000 people to get 1 or 2, new customers. You can really increase your rate of success because it's targeted and it's hitting them in the right spot, which is the heart.
Yeah, hit them in the heart. I like it. Hit them in the heart. And like, rather than cold calling, call your past clients. Leverage your technology. Have a process that's like an all about you form. So when you onboard somebody, figure out what matters to them in onboarding. And then when you're calling them later, you're not just calling to be like, hey, I was just thinking about you. Like, how's the product or the service or the project going? It's like, I was really thinking about Kenny, and on that all about you form, or like when we first started working together, you mentioned you were really having a challenge with this. How's that going? And yeah, you could do that over and over again, but rather than cold call somebody, call your past clients and then be like, hey, what problem do we help you solve? Okay, who else do you know that we could solve the same problem for? If you're going to be making calls, you might as well be calling your past client, right? And utilizing them.
Yeah, have people who are happy to talk to you, because you've helped them in the past versus,
exactly.
Who are you and what do you want now,
Yeah. So.
Well, thanks a lot, James. I've enjoyed having you. Let's give us a kind of overview of your company. That way everybody can really understand who you are and what you do and how you operate, because I want to make sure that's very clear, because it's unique.
So what we do, and thank you for that opportunity, Phil. What we do is combine the psychology with the human needs, map out the who, the when, and the what, find all the unique gifts, custom tailor them, and ship them. And it's important, when we're talking about client data, we actually track the returns. So on average, our clients get an increase of 322% more referrals. We've seen one client produce $10 million more from the same 20 referral partners. And what's really cool, I think if anybody out there is listening goes, James, this is really cool, but man, that sounds like a lot of work. We actually have your clients call you and reach out when they get their gifting. And so essentially what we do, Phil, is we help you create more connection at scale. So your clients and referral partners stay longer, spend more money with you, and send you more referrals. If anybody's interested in learning how to do that, we offer a complimentary strategy call. And they can go to growretention.com and click the Get Started button at the top right. So it's growretention.com. We're also on social media across Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook at The Retention Experts. And it'll all link back to a link to get on a call.
All right. Thank you very much, James. I enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, Phil.